What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. This podcast is sponsored by Berman Falk Hospitality Group, a design-driven furniture manufacturer who specializes in custom case goods and seating for hotel guest rooms. Today's guest is somebody with an eye for design, especially in the classic and contemporary elements. She's crafted connections through her design of unique and chic luxury properties around the world. She brings a background in not only interior design, but fashion as well, with over 30 years of experience in the industry. She was recently featured in both Hospitality Design Magazine and Sleeper Magazine. She's the global creative director and founding principal at Rome Interior Design. Ladies and gentlemen, Mary Alice Palmer. Welcome, Mary Alice.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's good to be here.
It's great to be here. And I think we first met, it must have been 10 plus or minus years ago. I don't remember exactly. We were working on the Bahamar project, and we were in Asia together reviewing prototypes. And then that project went on so many different holds and repositionings and all this. I really lost track. I've been to Asia many, 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 many times, but it's always fun to get to know people on a different level when you go to the factory, review prototypes, solve problems in the factory. And I just really appreciated that time with you. So I just want to say thank you for being here.
Thank you. That was an interesting time and one I will never forget because I sprained my ankle on that trip and they pushed me around the factory in a desk chair.
Yes. Oh my God, I forgot that. That was see how dedicated we all are.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Um, Needless to say, as I said in the introduction, despite all of the recent recognition that you're getting, um, you've been doing this for 30 years plus or minus. So it's like you've become this overnight success after many decades, right? Of hard work, uh, just inspiration, working on great projects, building great teams. And through all of that, hospitality has played an important role. So as we get into this, um, what does hospitality mean to you?
Well, I think hospitality is absolutely first and foremost about welcome and bringing people in with warmth and generosity to an environment that exceeds expectations and offers a sense of discovery, adventure, and experience and storytelling, and that they come away with memories that are lasting, and that is by engaging their emotions through that warmth and generosity and empathy for the guest. I
Mm,
think.
thank you. And if you were to paint a picture for us, what was the first hospitality project that you ever worked on?
Oh, it was a Renaissance hotel in Dallas, Texas. And while the hotel was never completed, I think we designed it 3 times with different, approaches to the site and the change of site and then a different client and a developer, and so, but I learned a tremendous amount, and I will, credit, Holly, Mickelson at Marriott with, being my first introduction to, the hospitality experience with brand.
Mm,
So and we're working with Holly still today on a new project with Marriott, so.
wow, that's awesome. So that was your first experience, and then what kept you in there? What kept you keeping into this and leaning into this channel and this like what I mean, I'm blind to it because I've just been in it almost my whole life, but what's kept you in hospitality design? What keeps you coming back?
Well, that's a really interesting question because it probably is gonna involve quite a few parts of my career,
Great.
and I think, based on the fact that I went to Parsons in New York, then I worked in, luxury single family residential with John Saladino, leading the sort of interiors, in New York at that time. And then I got into the film business and was doing set design. And so that was a very interesting journey about learning how environment propels character and propels a script and propels a story. Then I started into luxury leather goods. I founded a company as an entrepreneur that was around for a decade, selling to stores all over the country, as well as a little bit outside the country, like Barney's and Neiman's and Nordstrom's and others, and all the small boutiques. But then, when I had the opportunity to re-engage in interior design, I found hospitality in Dallas, and what I learned was it was really a synthesis, I think, of so many of my experiences, and so it really kind of was the great connector of all, because I think in hospitality you find this sense of the cinematic. You find fashion, you find trends, you find, the understanding of creating a home like residential experience that makes guests feel comfortable and the layers that make that happen. And so all of these things, I think, added up to something that I find very intriguing. And as you can tell, I'm an experienced junkie. I've been down many roads in my career, all involving design. But nevertheless, I'm attracted to things that keep me curious and keep me excited and keep me feeling like I'm on an adventure that is revealing new insights and new ways of thinking all the time. And so, hospitality to me kind of provides that. Each project is very unique. It's very different, different locations around the world because we're really a global team and we're working in multiple countries currently. So all of those things together keep me busy and keep my mind busy, keep me coming up with stories that are relevant to the projects and just learning. So to me, that's what keeps me there.
Mm. I also think it's really important that we share with everyone. So, just so everyone knows, there are companies that, like design firms, that get acquired, and the company that acquires them may keep the name, may change the name. Um, there's other companies that merge. There could be an argument over what the iteration of the name is going to be. But you at Rome did something really surprisingly amazing, and I'm actually really like kind of it took me off balance for a second because I thought that's what I heard, and then I was like, no, that doesn't make sense because that would never happen. But just so everyone knows, Rome is a subsidiary of HKS. And I'm really curious because oftentimes as you put it, Mary Alice, a big A architecture firm, global architecture firm, wants to keep their name and their brand. There's a intellectual um, property, there's a cachet, there's a brand recognition that thousands of people I don't know how many people work at HKS. Thousands, yeah.
Yeah, like about 1700 ish around.
So let's go with thousands, but they've spent decades building this brand and name recognition. But they did something which I completely admire, but some people may say is crazy, but I think it makes total sense. And I don't know why more people don't do it. They spun out Rome as its own standalone design firm. And I want to know how that happened because that's crazy to get a capital A architecture firm to want to do that. So can you just like walk us through what the iterative process was to get that idea going and then actually make it happen?
Well, it's a really interesting outcome because I was recruited to come to HKS from a much smaller firm, now known as Murphy Kramer. And so I had a wonderful experience there and great mentorship through Pat Murphy and Susan Seifert, and to really learn the ropes of hospitality. And I was recruited then to join HKS to create a new practice that had not existed previously at the firm, and that was to engage in exclusively in hospitality interior design. And while they'd had architecture and hospitality specialized for about 25 years, nothing with interiors. They were used to working with other interior designers, outside firms. And as you probably know, as many of your listeners probably know, there is a bit of a separation, of disciplines that is desired in hospitality. And for some, various reasons, they feel that it's better to have, architecture and interiors separate, not in the same firm. And so I think there's always this kind of feeling that interior designers at a large architecture firm are kind of following the architects and just an ad service in the architectural process, and that there may be a disconnect or not as a robust design addressing the specifics of a project that we're just doing what the architects say, yada yada. Whatever the reasoning is, they want that creative tension and the ability to really bring something that is about the interior and the guest experience and how the guests really experience a place. And so, after kind of thinking through my career and the way that I see this sort of entrepreneurial opportunity, I always thought, okay, this is my challenge to overcome this feeling. And the more that I talked, the more that I heard, the more that we grew in recognition, the more that I learned from those who were our would be clients as well as those we worked with. What we recognized is that we just weren't being acknowledged and or understood in the industry for the authenticity of what we were doing.
I just want to jump in for 1 second just to give the listeners some context. So I'll come up with two examples that are just top of mind. So a wonderful design firm out of Chicago called Simeone Deary was acquired by KTGY. And for a couple of years, it was KTGY Simeone Deary. But now, recently, I just heard it's just KTGY. And, there's pros and cons to every decision everyone makes. But personally, I think Simeone Deary was a great name. And the provenance and the leadership that started that is pretty awesome. And I think that what do they say? The shingle you put on the side of the building? I think there's real value for that, especially in our niche world of hospitality design. Okay, so we'll go with that one. So I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying I'm reporting the weather. Okay.
It can be different. Yeah.
On the other side, WATG, a really big architecture firm out of Honolulu, but they have offices all over the place. They saw that the importance of having an interiors department and made Wimberley Interiors. So WATG is Wimberley Allison Tongagu, but so they're keeping some allegiance to that original founder name and brand identity. But HKS just went with Rome, ROAM, which I love for so many different levels. Like the name is great for kind of what you're doing and what we do in this industry. But how did this idea come up? And then what were some of the conversations or arguments or um, kind of just distillation of, okay, this makes sense. This is a sound idea. Let's go with it. So walk us through that.
Sure. Well, I mean, to the firm's credit, I think they've seen the value of, elevating uh, interior design and growing that as a market share because, obviously, they could double their market share if they had a great emphasis on interior delivery. And so, but nevertheless, they still saw it as a kind of a more of a homogenized offering. And the more we talked, and the more that we gathered intel, it became very apparent to us that we really needed to have our own identity because our story wasn't being told on our website. It wasn't being told in ways that could um, precede us rather than HKS capital A architecture preceding us. And so we went to work and created a pro forma, a business plan, and presented this business case to our executive board. And it was astounding how easy it was, because just, maybe 3 or 5 years prior to that, we'd have heard, never, never, never will you have your own name. Never, never will you be separate. Never, never will this happen. And then suddenly, when we were able to make the clear uh, case, they got it, like, almost immediately. And that changed everything, because they decided to make the investment. We worked with a branding firm. I think coming up with the name was one of the most challenging aspects of breaking away, because it wasn't somebody's name that needed to be on the door. It's a team. We're really about being a team studio, a collaborative effort that offers something that will go on into perpetuity, not just because of one particular person sitting at the head.
Um, I have a question, and I really like it. When you said when you made the case and it became clear, and I before I had used the word in all the different decision makings from all the different firms, and I just used those two just to paint a picture of like a spectrum. Um, how did you all of the stakeholders involved in this decision know when it was clear?
I think when you start to look at the deep understanding of the roadblocks or speed bumps that we encountered along the way, and to be able to educate around those, and that was sort of, first of all, the clarity of the history. And then we had a very clear path to turning those obstacles into assets, and to work through the rebranding to be able to reach our marketplace. And that's really what it's all about. Is it has to be market driven. You have to have the work. You have to know who you are and have the passion for creating. But it also has to be market driven, in that you are reaching your market in ways that they can hear you and see you. And so, having, like I said, the website and that sort of thing. So I guess, because we had all of the steps laid out and the strategy very well defined, and the reasons why this would work. We also did a study with a brand strategist, who was able to very clearly help us to deliver that message.
Hmm.
And sometimes you got to have that sort of outside eye for everybody to certainly start to take a look and go, wow, maybe we should have understood this, or now we get it. And that's really what they said was, oh, now we get it. The light bulb went off. And
If you were to name like one or two of those obstacles that you mentioned,
Mhm.
how did you look? Because I always find that interesting, getting a fresh perspective or looking at things a little differently, where you take those obstacles and turn them into, oh, actually, these are opportunities, or these bottlenecks are actually opportunities, and this can drive more value and create more opportunities. So, give us an example of one or two of those obstacles that became opportunities, if you don't mind.
Well, we talked a little bit already about the desire for separation of the, of architecture and interior design. And so, by creating the new brand, we were able to turn that around into, we have our own identity. We now can present the business case to you of our separation, but we also have the advantages of being still, on the foundation of a very large and very well defined firm that has technical prowess and process and delivery that exceeds any small individual boutique interior design firm. So now, not only do we have the kind of cool factor of being on our own and completely bespoke, and then combining that with delivery that is really robust, and having those advantages together in a package, if you will, and then still the opportunity to work with our architects when that comes along, and for us to share work with one another. But we also have other architects bringing us work. And we work outside of the framework of the HKS system completely on many occasions, and probably half and half right now, maybe 70-30 on the other side of more with outside architects. And then I think this idea of HKS's reputation, which can be, obviously much more geared towards the architecture component and all of the built work that they have in hospitality and their portfolio. So all of that is then put on us as that's who we are. And now with the new name, we've been able to turn that around to being, letting our name precede us and letting people judge us on our own merits. So, I mean, those are kind of a few examples. Does that answer your question?
It does. I also think it's, the most valuable asset any of us have is time, right? And I know I've heard anecdotally that there are some projects out there where they want both of these architecture function and the interiors function under the same umbrella for sake of time, because time in this case is money, right?
Mhm.
Every day, every less coordination meeting, everything else that we could have and be under one house, I that you could get awarded that. I feel like it solves that problem. That's really interesting. But I also love the fact that you created this name that Rome, which is totally separate. And well, you said it's 70% outside versus 30% inside now, right? But that could grow to even more. And that could just be its own kind of standalone, or it is its own standalone P&L, and you're not as tethered to the gravity of the name HKS either. So you can really forge another path.
Yeah, and I think that brings value and advantages to the firm itself
Mhm.
because as our recognition grows and people understand that we have that connectivity with the firm, it definitely brings that value to the firm. For instance, we just got I can't even count I don't know a dozen articles written about our new Nikki Beach project in Antigua. So we're doing their first luxury hotel property, with branded residential, and, we've gotten hugely published on it, and, but in tandem, HCAS is mentioned. And so you just value that is being brought by our PR group to Rome, but then a shared value that comes from both of us, all of us, being involved. So when we have those kinds of projects, I think Rome's name is really lending value as we grow and become more and more known. And plus, it attracts attention as a new entity too. So being something that people are, wondering about. So that gets, new avenues for recognition. And so that value then rubs off on all of our partners at HKS.
I also think it's also cool to think about Rome as an incubator for design in the hospitality space, right? Or standalone interior space. But then HKS, you I was just last week at the Radical Innovation event. I was emceeing that, and you guys won for like the most radical project idea called Bubble.
Yeah.
You had 5 women, I think 5 women from HKS were on the team.
Yeah.
You won the award. I was up there I g- with them on stage, and I forget her Maite? Maite? Is that her
Yeah.
name? Maite?
There's that. Meta. Yeah.
She accepted the award for all of you. And it was really cool that it's kind of like you have these now 2 separate and untethered, R&D functions in effect that can also help propel everyone in the industry forward. Hmm.
Well, that's what's great about having access to all of the advantages of the firm because, they have research and development, they have advisory, they have an innovative lab that we're creating in Los Angeles, which has a 3D printer that is big enough to print a chair. So we're getting into product design and just the access to all of the arms and the breadth and reach of the firm, and having offices all over the world. While our studio is only in Dallas and in London currently, We have a strategic growth plan that is on its way, but it helps us to have that leg up by having all of those offices in these various locations, and we're working, like I said, throughout the world. And it gives us that facility because we're not just this small independent group. We have, a major entity behind us, and all that that brings to the table.
Hey, everybody. We've been doing this podcast for over 3 years now. And one of the themes that consistently comes up is sustainability. And I'm just really proud to announce that our sponsor, Berman Falk Hospitality Group, is the first within our hospitality industry to switch to sustainable and recyclable packaging, eliminating the use of styrofoam. Please check out their impact page in the show notes for more info. I want to go back to the big A architecture company, the legacy architecture company, and getting everyone in that decision making process to spin out this standalone entity of Rome. On a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult was it for them to make that decision?
Well, I think the executive board, by the time we took it to them as a real ask, um, we had so put our ducks in a row, if you will, that they could see the value and the possibilities. But leading up to that, it was a tremendous lift. And I think, my partner, Olga Acosta, and I tend to be kind of stubborn and relentless and stand our ground. And you kind of have to be that way in a large firm like HKS. And when, we work collaboratively with our partners, but at the same time, we have to have a real strength of conviction. And so, the challenges led up to that creating of that business case, and the challenges both internally and externally. And like I said, the CEO just a few years prior to that had said, "No way, no how, never going to happen," because they were all about the one brand, the one firm, and so it really was pretty astounding.
That's so surprising because, again, when you talk about big A architect, I always like to use like the idea of them being what's made them so successful is being this like uncompromising visionary, right? It's like this is the North Star. We're getting there, and I'm uncompromising in all aspects to get there, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
design, business strategy, you name it. And it's so surprising and refreshing that I don't know the players at the board of HKS, so but I would just imagine if it's that kind of big A architecture mindset to get them to come off of that and see the value and have humility about that decision based on all the data that you presented them and have them change their mind over time, despite how um, strong or stubborn you said that you and Olga, your colleague Olga, are your
Yes.
colleague
Olga.
are.
Mhm.
Um, it's It's really I mean, it's totally surprising and refreshing and awesome. So thank you for sharing that. Um, when you were making the business cases, when did you start making the business cases and how did you paint them? And I think you've shared already some of them, but like between then and where you are now or the path or the runway that you've created, is it on target, off target, exceeding? Would you have done something different?
Honestly, I think it's all working according to plan so far. I mean, it takes time to build that recognition with a new
Mm.
name and a new brand. But nevertheless, it's been quite astonishing how widely the doors have opened up for us, just in a very, very brief amount of time. Having just launched the brand just about a year ago in November, um, we have been accepted onto all of the major brand luxury lists pretty much in North America and in CALA, and also in the European market. And so we have been able to achieve a degree of acceptance that had eluded us previously. Another great opportunity that lent itself to that step up is the completion of the Ritz-Carlton in Portland, Oregon. And I think for Marriott particularly, when they saw the results of what we were dedicated to for 7 years, and working, very, very relentlessly on their behalf, as brand, to ensure that the outcome was going to adhere to the design intent. And so Nigel Hatcher was just very thrilled with the results, and we are now one of two that are on the recommended list for Ritz Carlton. And we've received probably, I don't know, 4 RFPs for Ritz Carlton since then throughout the world. And so, just things like that. And we're on their luxury list all across the board. And then other than W, which Rockwell is kind of mastering right now. And then Hilton, Mandarin Oriental, One and Only, Six Senses, Accor, all of them. We have been accepted into that sort of elite group very quickly. And while we had these connections and conversations prior to the new branding, the doors blew off when there was a new brand to welcome in. And so we're doing a Waldorf Astoria in Park City. We're working on with Baccarat. It's a long list, and so we're just, yes, it's working.
Wonderful. So you almost could feel comfortable, although maybe get more than a year under there to say like, "I told you so." Right?
Yeah, well, I think what makes me excited is that the great reaction to the
Mm,
portfolio that we've been able to build, and the incredible team that we have that has, never settled for less than the best, and they've exceeded and raised the bar through every endeavor, to the point where I think we have a spectacular portfolio, and that's been so well received, and that really goes to years of hard work.
mm,
And that was the precursor. It's not as if we just decided to invent a brand. It's that we have the work that supports it, and the team that really gets it. So I give huge credit to the team and their accomplishments, and that I think also, it brought the value to our board to understand that what we're doing is really worthwhile, and now it's more accessible to our marketplace through all of these things that we've been talking about.
and how long were you at HKS before the past year?
So a dozen years,
12 years.
12.
So
Mhm.
what is it so in this year that you've kind of spun out and created this new identity, as it pertains to hospitality design and people, how has it been attracting talent or recruiting talent before versus after? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah. Well, I think as we're in our sort of growth period, we're definitely attracting talent that is on the very senior level, that is very interested in joining a group that is, um, and may I say, led by women, and that, and still to this day, this industry is very heavily dominated by a lot of men, names on the door, and that sort of thing. So I think that makes us kind of special in attracting talent. I think that there's enough buzz going on around this that we're getting, just a lot more interest. And it's hard, though, to find mid-level people based on the kind of exodus and COVID and switching around, and everybody's looking right now. So we're hiring, just in case anyone wants to know. But yeah, no, we've got some really interesting senior talents that we're looking at, and other locations. So
Cool. And then in Dallas, are you within the HKS footprint or are you going to have your own office? Do you have your own, like, walk me through that.
yeah. Currently, we're within the HKS footprint, and it's a slow build. We're not looking to freak anybody out. we're just making our way as
Well,
the as
you're freaking me out because it's so, like, against the playbook what you guys have done. I can't think of anyone else, any other large firm that's done that. I mean, even as you're talking, I'm trying desperately to go through your website and see if it says anything about HKS in here, and it's like, I don't think it does. It says, like, your address in Dallas is probably the same address as HKS, but it's
right.
literally not a subsidiary, not a this, not a that. It's like its own thing. That takes real courage, I think.
Well, kudos to our CEO, Dan Noble, who I think has really uh, made it his 10 years work as the CEO to sort of change the direction and perception at HKS and place tremendous value on design
Mm.
and innovation. And so I think that we align directly with that. And so what we do is very, very different than what a lot of the rest of the firm does, it brings value in the sense that people see what we're up to, and how does that, do something for what they're doing, or how can we then share thought leadership in ways that make sense and bring value to everything. And so I think Dan really, you know, went out there in support of us when he decided that he truly got it. He got it, and he has been nothing but a tremendous champion for us, as well as Kirk Teskey, who runs our sector. And so the two of them, I think, saw the strategy as relevant, and they're very excited about how it's playing out. I just got an email this morning from Kirk that said, "Strategy's working. This is great. So amazing."
Double your salary.
Thank you for that, man. Good
No,
idea.
yeah, it's really, it's pretty, I mean, it's really cool. I'm kinda like, I'm really taken aback by it. It's just so not the normal, but now I'm repeating myself over and over because I'm so, like, knocked off balance by the whole thing. If you were to think about from starting at Saladino and then your journey through where you are now at Rome, what are some mentors that kind of that you might wanna give a shout out to that really helped you kind of think differently and gave you courage to take next steps? Are there any stories that you can share about mentors, whether like formally or not formally, just
Yeah.
people who cared for you and kind of how they gave you nudges to take these big steps?
Saladino was a great inspiration. I mean, he truly was a unique character, and I love that he was very self-deprecating, but at the same time, from Kansas City, he always called himself the last of the Edwardian snobs, and so I loved his charisma and his ability to really pull things together in ways that were absolutely not intuitive, but then it just set everything else off. And they were unusual juxtapositions, and his very own color sensibility that was so gorgeous. And so I valued that very much in my life. I worked for him when I was at Parsons in the sample library, and the sample library is undervalued today. It should be have more emphasis on it.
They get smaller and smaller every year.
Yeah. But I think that was a huge opportunity that I found myself in, that I really value to this day. And then I was with them after I finished school as well, briefly. And then when I moved into the film business, um, that to me, I don't have any one particular individual, but one production designer really encouraged me. His name was Greg Bolton, and he convinced me that you could really do anything you put your mind to, and that, starting out in a field that I wasn't really familiar with, he gave me the courage to just continue to grow and grow and grow. He was a great teacher, and always, helped me understand every aspect of the industry and the process, and introduced me to people on a regular basis. And um, that he probably was very instrumental. I hadn't thought about that in a while, but for sure he was. And that also gave me the courage to go out and start a new business, which was fashion, and start from scratch making leather goods and moving to Argentina and not speaking a word of Spanish. And the adventure really started to take shape based on those who encouraged that independence and that mindset that whatever it is you set your mind to, you can make it happen.
I'm also curious as far as a larger architecture firm. I've talked to other people who work at larger architecture firms over the years, and whether interiors is separate or not, in however whatever facet that is, they do oftentimes bring the hospitality designers into the kickoff of a non-hospitality project, whether it's something in aviation or I don't know, education or healthcare, or all the different silos that we have in architecture and design. Does that happen between Rome and HKS, or in your experience, how might that happen more so that what could the rest of the firms learn from hospitality design?
Well, I think in just about every practice, there may be some exceptions, but certainly within, for instance, healthcare and sports and venues and even commercial and commercial mixed use, there is the desire for that influence of hospitality.
Mm.
As hospitality looks to residential, I think other practices look to hospitality to inspire the experience of the people inhabiting their buildings. And so we have created sort of three ways that the firm can engage with Rome, and that is as an advisory, essentially going after a project. So, for instance, I or another member of our team could go to interviews with these other practices to help to deliver that message of understanding of the hospitality influence, and then how we can help through kind of a conceptual phase, perhaps, or as an advisory on what they're doing to ensure that they're using that kind of storytelling and experiential journey in the ways that their design process happens. And so um, we have that sort of thought leadership sharing. And then there's the more collaborative, in which we would be actually engaged on the project to work alongside, but still defined as Rome and as this unique entity that would have a separate contract.
Mhm.
And that can happen both with our architects and hospitality. And then it can also happen, for instance, in sports, where the Joneses with the Dallas Cowboys are renovating the AT&T Stadium, and they asked our team to come in and do all of the VIP owner suites as well as the owners club.
Didn't that just open?
That half of it is finished, and then they'll complete the other half after the
No, I
season.
meant the whole stadium. Didn't that's like a new stadium.
That was one of the first ones that HKS did that really put them on the map
Oh,
for big stadiums.
mm.
You're thinking of probably SoFi.
Maybe this is where time flies. I feel like I went
Mhm.
to there was an NEWH event at the stadium at AT&T Stadium,
Yeah.
after it had just opened.
That was a while ago.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm losing
So,
time.
probably, maybe 10 years ago?
No way. That doesn't
Yeah.
seem like that long ago. Because I remember we got to walk out there onto the field. It was really cool. It was really awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so the 3 ways, there's an advisory component, there's this collaborative component, and then what's the 3rd way?
And then the third way is that we work completely independently. So, the first two are about engaging with the firm, and then the third is that we are fully independent. We're either doing or a renovation, or we are working on an adaptive reuse, or we are doing work with another architect. And we have architects on our team that are registered architects, so we can function fully independently um, if necessary. So, for instance, on a project like Esperanza, which we're doing another refresh after 2016, we opened after completely renovating the property, and we influenced all of the buildings, the color of the buildings. We designed the palapa roofs, we designed the hardscape, we designed the landscape features, we um, recolored the pool and created a scenario where everything blends seamlessly into the rocks and the ocean, plus doing all of the interiors. And so, in that case, it was a standalone Rome project, and they've called us back after 8 years to refresh the guest rooms, and it's been so successful. We won the Gold Key Award back in 2016.
Oh, I remember that.
Um, but so those are things where, I mean, we can actually stand alone as well. But I think a lot of value comes from when we can partner with our architects, and because of our kind of familiarity and understanding, we bring a lot of value to the table in approaching a project through not only architecture and interior design, but then also landscape and even advisory, doing market studies to really understand how to best position a property. And so, we love that we can have all this shared knowledge to offer, and clients can come to that in any way that they like. It gives them a great deal of freedom and options. And our team, just to know, we work in the Revit model also. So we're one of the few interior design firms that uses Revit.
Mm. Yeah, it's becoming more and more prevalent, and I
Yeah,
think it's really it's pretty cool what that is capable of doing, just again, from saving time. Like, you maybe spend more time modeling everything out at the front end, but when dollars and cents matter even more, it makes everything way more seamless, from costing to scheduling to everything. It's pretty remarkable. I'm excited to see that gain more and more, because it also just when you're working in that model, it also just forces everyone you have to plan more. You have to really
yeah.
plan out resources, designs, details, everything so much more and make sure everything goes together. So again, it's that front end knowledge work makes everything else run that much smoother and cost effectively. So Mary Alice, if you were to go back in front of the Mary Alice working at Saladino while you were an intern, right?
And then a junior designer after I finished school. Yeah.
From Parsons. So if you were to magically appear in front of the Mary Alice that was at Parsons working at Saladino, what advice would you have for yourself?
Just relax. I think, there's no greater truth than if I knew then what I know now. It is because I think that's what you gain at a certain point in your life, which I will not name. I think you finally realize that things come around and go around, and nothing is the end of the world, that everything is about, learning and continuing to grow, and that, your entire life doesn't hinge on one decision or one moment. And it may change things in certain ways. It's the paths that you choose
Mm,
and not those that you don't. And so I now look back at my life as a great adventure rather than at the time desperately trying to figure out what I should do and who I should be and what does that mean. And that's probably why I switched around so much, because I was experimenting. But
mm.
now I look back on it and go, what an adventure.
Yeah,
And I could have just relaxed and seen it that way at the time. Would have had a lot less anxiety.
totally. But you know what? That's why I love that question, because even though we may have done something differently when we started or given ourselves some advice to like change our trajectory a bit, that struggle is what helps us sharpen our blades to become ourselves, right? And who we really are. So I just want to say, Mary Alice, this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And I thank you for putting yourself out there with everyone. And also, I thank the leaders of your company, and may there be more like it out there who can set ego aside and look at things objectively and make really surprisingly radical changes. And I think we all could learn from that, because it's good to check yourself every once in a while and see what's good. And I wish you continued success on your journey.
Well, see, you thought you knew me, Dan.
Ah,
That
yeah, I should have gotten you a real wheelchair in that factory instead of pushing you around on a task chair.
I always like to be a surprise.
I mean, this has just been wonderful. So really a wholehearted thank you, Mary Alice.
Well, thank you so much, Dan, for the opportunity. It is always a pleasure talking with you, no matter where we are. I enjoy connecting, and this is really fantastic. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And also thank you to all of our listeners, because without you, I wouldn't be speaking with amazing people like Mary Alice and hearing these incredible business case stories, and sharing them with all of you, and hopefully impacting everyone else in some kind of way to help shorten your journey. So if this has changed your thinking on anything, business, design, life, please pass it along, because we grow every week because of you, by word of mouth mostly. So thank you, and we'll catch you next time.